Hi everybody, it's Heather. I'm so excited because I actually finally met the family who has the structure in their backyard that we are theorizing might be the original Millbrook mill. The mill which Millbrook got its name off from, so like Millbrook Road, and before that the Millbrook community. So I want to show you guys what I'm looking at today. Hey there, Jeff. I'm just gonna tag a few friends before I get started, like I always do, to make sure that they have an opportunity to watch if they would like. Let me just get a few people in here who might be interested in this. I think Bryant might. Trombley. All right. So, and maybe my mom. All right, there we go. So I've invited people. All right. Hey, Natalie. Hi, Jeff. All right, so I'm about to show you guys, so just hang in there for 1 second. What I want to briefly explain here is that there is a structure in the backyard of a family in Raleigh. It's near the Quail Ridge, Quail Hollow sort of area. And I had learned about it from Mike Legaros. He had a blog where he got some pictures. And hi, Anna. And I've been doing a lot of research on it, talking to people who have lived in this area for, since 80 or 90 years ago, which is as far back as I can get in oral history and looking at old maps. So I'm going to show you in just a minute, but I just want to explain. So I have been looking for this structure, and I found out that it was in someone's yard, and I of course didn't want to trespass, so I've been trying to get in touch with them, and I finally did, and they've shown me around, and it's amazing. So I'm going to flip the camera around so you guys can see. All right, here it is. So this structure is in someone's backyard. We are on a good amount of flat stone, and then this is just in their backyard. Now, I've been talking to the historic community. There's not a whole lot known about this area. In fact, this doesn't show up on any of the maps, so there's not a lot to go on as to explain what it exactly is. However, based on talking to people who lived here in the 1930s, they said that they used to come out to this structure even back then, and even back then it was an abandoned wall. And they said that they would have picnics on the flat rock here. As recently as the 1980s, families lived here as well, and they would build rope swings and jump off of this, and they would sunbathe and play war, and had no idea that they were playing on a piece of history. So what we have determined from talking to people, from oral history and oral tradition, people are saying that the legend has been passed down that this is the original mill that Millbrook was named after. So let's think about Raleigh. Raleigh in the Raleigh area in the 1700s. It wasn't even Raleigh yet. It was just a collection of farms. It was a community called Bloomsbury. So Raleigh didn't exist. There was no city. It was just Bloomsbury. And Bloomsbury had neighboring communities, and one of the neighboring communities was Millbrook. And it might not have even been called Millbrook at the time. There are several other names for this community. So yeah, I like the name Bloomsbury too. It's cute. So back in those times, in the 1700s, late 1700s, even early 1800s, this whole area would have been nothing but farms. And now I'm not talking about large plantations, I'm talking about small family farms. The larger plantations, the Cameron plantation, the Mordecai plantation, those types of plantations would have been closer to where downtown Raleigh is today. When you got further out this way, it was just small family farms. In fact, Capitol Boulevard was nothing but dairy farms. Even as recently as the 1930s and 40s, I mean, we're talking in the 1900s at this point, Raleigh existed. Raleigh had neighborhoods and was starting to kind of sprawl out and develop into suburbs. Millbrook was still really out in the country. So the area where you see Millbrook Road, the area where you see Falls of the Noose Road, Quail Ridge, Quail Hollow, kind of what's now Midtown Raleigh or North Raleigh, would have just been farms. And even getting into downtown would have been kind of a long way. I mean, you know, especially before cars were popularized, you would be riding a horse several miles into town. So this area was called the Millbrook community, and the idea is that back then people would have named their communities kind of more, they named them based on really obvious stuff. So like if you were by the big tree, you might be Big Tree, because there wasn't a name for everything yet. So people would just say like, oh yeah, he lives over by the big tree, and that would turn into just kind of the shorthand for just saying, oh yeah, he's over in Big Tree, and then the name would become Big Tree. A great example of this is Apex. The town of Apex is called Apex because back when we were, you know, more using trains and locomotives, Apex was at the top of the hill. It was the apex of the train stations. So they referred to it as the Apex, and it became called Apex. So then it stands to reason that a place called Millbrook, well, that seems pretty obvious. It was probably named where there was a mill and a brook. And like I said, we haven't had any engineers come look at this yet to determine exactly what it would be. But the oral history, dating back to at least as early as the 1930s, says that this is the original, the site of the original mill. And this would have been the brook, which is Marsh Creek. This structure, it goes on further that way. It eventually becomes an earthen dam. So this we're thinking is the dam. It is very, very thick. I'm gonna climb up on it in a second here, but I just wanna show you. So this is about, I would say, let's see, I'm 5 feet tall. It's gotta be at least 10 feet tall. So maybe 10 feet tall, maybe 12 feet tall. And then length, gosh, I mean maybe 30 to 50 feet. And I'm gonna show you the mill closer up. Did you, Jimmy? Jimmy, what did you hear that this was? I would love to hear comments from you when you were a kid playing here. Was there any talk about what this was? Like I said, I'm hearing from people who lived in the Millbrook community in the 30s that they considered this to be the original Millbrook mill. Now their source for that, it's weak. Their source is just their family told them. But at a certain point, the story goes back and back and back as your grandparents are telling you it used to be an old mill. Maybe it is coming from a place of truth. We certainly have lots of evidence to say that it is, but we don't have a lot of, I mean, honestly, we don't have a lot of data about Millbrook community, which is what my next article is going to be about. So yeah, there is, Jeff. So I'm going to go over there in a minute. So let me just show you. The thing is, it's hard for me to navigate because there's a lot of rushing water. So showing you everything while I walk is a little difficult, but I'm gonna try. I will have pictures, but if you can see over there, the dam sort of ends. That's where the dam was, it looks like it was blown up, and then on the other side it continues, but it's more of an earthen dam. It does go back up, it creates an embankment, and there are big chunks of granite there, and I will show you that, and there are pictures of that. So let me show you one reason that we definitely believe that this was a mill. Now, obviously this part here was probably the dam, but we think it might have attached to the mill. One reason that we believe that is because we did find a slough, or at least something that seems to be a slough, and I'm going to show you that. So here's the back of the dam. Very thick. This dam has to be at least, oh, I don't know, 4 feet, 3 feet thick. Very thick, would have been holding back a lot of water for it to be that thick. So up here, I'm gonna try to show you guys, we found the slough. Now the slough, that is basically a big tunnel where the water would have rushed. So whenever you find an old mill, you're going to find a slough. So this is another big reason that we definitely think that this might have been part of a mill. Here, I'm going to bring you to the slough. So you see how the land arches up, and then there's going to be a big divot in the land. Jimmy, I'm trying to read your... Jimmy, if you have any info, let me know, because I'm actually writing that article right now. I have been talking to the oldest churches in the Millbrook area, and they're doing some historic research as well. So they've got a lot of information for me. So right here, see, I've never seen pictures of this. I had seen pictures of the dam itself, but this is the slough. So what you see here is that the land is, there's a trench basically dug into the land, and that trench is where the water would have gone. Again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm actually just showing this, and I'm hoping that some architects and engineers might be able to give me more insight. But I do know that this is a slough, and that typically when I see abandoned mills, or mills that exist, they sit right beside a slough. And usually the slough kind of comes right up to the mill. So like, for example, when I was at the Eno River looking for and finding the mills there, we had to get to the mill actually sat up on a hill like that, and we couldn't get to it very easily. We had to trudge through the slough, which had been flooded, so it was quite a messy exploration. So this, we're thinking, is the slough that would have been for the Millbrook Mill. Still a lot of question as to where the mill itself would have stood. I have heard from the family who lives here that at the end of the slough there are some, maybe some pipes or some metal pieces. Yes, it does look like an old mill site. It really looks, I mean, when I saw this, it looked exactly like what it looked like at the Eno River when I went and found the mill there. So, given that there is a slough here, that really does heighten the argument that this must have been a mill site. Again, the question is, did the mill connect to the dam over there? Is that dam part of it? That's an awfully nice constructed dam. I mean, it looks like the side of a building to me. So we kind of wonder if maybe the dam was connected, maybe the mill connected to the dam, and then over here was the slough. Again, we don't know how long, how big the mill was. We do think it might have been a grist mill. Obviously, Millbrook got its name from being the community where, farmers in the area had to have mills. They really relied on mills, especially back in the 1700s and 1800s. Farmers would have been farming, I think cotton and corn. Yeah, cotton and corn. So cotton and corn would have been our big cash crops at the time, and especially for corn, you're going to need to have a mill. So then it makes sense that the Millbrook community might have been the place where farmers went to do their milling. There was also a mill at the Mordecai plantation, and some people did use that. But if you were as far out as Millbrook and you had only a horse to get into downtown, you probably wouldn't have wanted to travel that far. Some other things I've learned about Millbrook while doing this exploration is that the grist and lumber, is that the churches that are the oldest churches in Millbrook used to meet in something called an arbor. And so the churches didn't have buildings yet. They just would meet in an arbor, which would have been like a nice, maybe like grove or wooded area, maybe have hedges around it, some protection from the elements, but it would be an outdoor church gathering. And I have done some research as to where the church's arbors used to be. One of them was right where Northridge is today. So if you go Northridge, if you go shopping at like Harris Teeter, you will be right there by an arbor. So I need to figure out how to get back to the house, but I did want to show you guys what I was looking at today. If you want to know more about it, I will have an article going up this week on ABC 11 WTVD. So if you want to learn more about the history of Millbrook and this abandoned mill, you can read that. I want to say this is very exciting. This is a piece of history that I mean, truthfully, it's a find. If it's the original Millbrook mill, it is a very big deal and a very amazing original find. It ranks there with Isaac Hunter's Tavern, things that were critical to the formation of the city around here. And in this case, we have a piece that still exists, that has survived the test of time. It is amazing to see what you can find in people's yards in Raleigh. If you have a wooded backyard that hasn't been developed, sometimes you can find chunks of history back there. I mean, we have found Isaac Hunter's Tavern is on just a piece of undeveloped land hidden out in the woods. We've got this potential Millbrook Mill, the racetrack, the Raleigh racetrack, just out in the undeveloped woods, and of course Bloomsbury Park. The huge dance pavilion is just in somebody's undeveloped backyard. So this is the original, well, this is, sorry, this is, so I'm trying to get down. Oh, here we go. Here's the way down. Sorry, you guys are watching me explore live, so you never know when I'm gonna find something to trip over. So yeah, this, but I wanted to say also, this is a place heavy in granite. There's a ton of giant chunks of granite around here. I keep wondering if any of it's part of the mill or if it's just a natural formation of granite that maybe was used to build this. I'm gonna just see if I can get a little bit closer and show you guys a close-up of this. So it's very cool. I mean, I just love to look at it. It is absolutely beautiful. Getting around is a little bit tricky. Like I said, it's slippery. This is on someone's property, so I would not suggest coming out looking for it. That's how I want to cross, but I feel like that's going to be very slippery. So I'm going to walk over this way, see if I can figure out where to cross. So yeah, Jimmy, that's a great point. I might actually use that in my article if you're okay with that. So you're right, there aren't a lot of other mills in the area. The only thing, Jimmy, specifically, I'm telling you, but anybody can of course know. One thing I've noted is that when you look at a map of the 1800s, oh, I bet, yeah, it's definitely slippery. When you look at a map of the 1800s, you do not see a mill marked in this area. So what I'm wondering, and anybody who knows an answer, but I'm mentioning this to Jimmy, who is specifically telling me some history here. The only thing is, yeah, in the map of the 1800s, there is no mill indicated to be anywhere around here, including here. So what we're thinking is that this might predate the 1800s map. Because like I said, people who lived in this area in the 1930s, this was still an abandoned piece of history that nobody really exactly, knew what it was. However, the legend passed down, even in the 1930s, was that this was the original Millbrook Mill. This was the site of it. So that's sort of that's the oral history of this location, at least. However, the maps don't seem to match up. But the theory that we have right now is that this possibly was before the 1800s. And so maybe by the time we made those maps in the 1800s, maybe this wasn't a mill anymore. We have no idea how long this was, functioning as a mill. So if this was pre-revolutionary, we don't have any maps that tell us where the mills were back then in the pre-revolutionary times. Or at least if we do, I don't know about them. If you know of some maps, please tell me. I'd love to see them. But that's why we think that it must be earlier. It must be earlier than the Civil War. And in fact, now I have not been able to verify this at all, but I heard, I think it was from Mike Legaros, and forgive me if I'm misquoting you, but I believe that I heard that somewhere on these rocks there is a little marker where either somebody carved into it, I think, that the date was pre-Revolutionary War. So I have heard that somewhere on this mill is a marker that says that it's from the 1700s. Again, I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen the marker myself. I've also heard there's some metal pieces down there. Again, I haven't seen them myself. I'm going to try to cross here, guys, because I want to show you a closer look. But I might have to put the phone in my pocket while I try to cross. And you might just hear sounds of me struggling to get across this slippery area. Let me see. Pretty slippery. Trying to figure out how to get across. The fun part of exploring. I think I can get across here. Again, forgive me. Yeah, so Jimmy, I think I think maybe you, I don't know, it looked like you blinked out and then came back on. So what I think you might have missed was I was saying that we're thinking that this mill might have been built in the 1700s, and that's why it's not on these maps. And that even as recently as the 1930s, people would come out here, and it was abandoned even then. So we're thinking this must have been abandoned a while. And like I said, there's also supposed to be, again, this is hearsay, I don't know, I haven't seen it. I would love to find it. Somewhere on this wall, I've heard that there is a carving of the date. So if I could find that, that would be amazing, but I have not been able to. So I'm going to try to cross real quick, guys. If we get disconnected, I'll come back in a minute and show you a close-up of the mill. I got to try to get over this water here. Trying to figure out the best way across. Yes, so for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm here exploring this abandoned, well, not abandoned, I guess it's in someone's yard, but this old, forgotten mill, we think might be the original Millbrook mill, or at least a part of it, maybe the dam that was connected to it. But I am going to have to put the phone in my pocket for a minute so I can cross this water. So hang in there for just a second, guys. And if we get disconnected, I'll come right back. I'm zipping my phone into my pocket so that it'll stay secure while I try to cross and climb here. I'm just trying to figure out what the best way across is. Like I said, I will come back in a second and show you guys the closer part of the mill. I want to show you a close-up, but I need to get back across the little river here. And it's slippery, so forgive me while I take a minute to try to get across. I do like to explore in the winter or slightly cooler parts of the year. Less likely to have things like ticks and snakes. I had help getting across to get onto this side, so getting back across is a little trickier because I'm by myself now. But I'm thinking this is where I crossed, so I'm going to try to cross here. I wonder if any of you are still watching. You're looking at the inside of my pocket if you've just logged in, because I'm trying to cross a creek and then come back and show you a closer up of the mill. Alright, I'm walking across some rocks. Doing pretty good. Not too bad. These rocks are not too slippery. I think I'm going to make it. Gonna make it, guys. It's going to be okay. Alright, I made it. Made it across. Alright, hello everybody. I'm back. For those of you who hung in there, you're now going to get to see the mill closer up. So, congratulations to you guys. Alright, here I go. There it is from a little bit further away. Now what they have told me is that this has really eroded significantly over the years. That the hurricanes and snowstorms and all the nasty North Carolina weather has really endangered this mill. Ooh, slippery. Found a slick spot. Still just looking for ways across. You guys get to watch all of the adventure live, even the slipping and falling. Okay, here we go. So, this whole place has tons of these giant stones. which the mill is built out of. And as you can see, if this is the dam, which is what we're thinking, it goes along for like 30 feet, and then there's a divot of nothing, and then it goes back up and is an earthen dam on the other side. So I want to show you this close up, and then I kind of want to climb on it and show you guys from above. I want to make sure you guys get a good view. And I do need to get pictures too, so I might have to. Oh, I see people hiking through the woods. They don't even know that they're about to be famous. Yeah, hikers coming through. Hello. So, it looks like this must be somewhat public. So, okay, here we go. So here is the close-up of the rocks. I did find this here. I've been told by the owner that they believe this hole to be where explosives would have been put in when quarrying the, wow, it is getting windy out here, when quarrying these giant stones. So that might be what that was for. This is a particularly large stone, so it could have been put there for people to drag it, put a rope through it or whatever to make it easier. As you can see, definitely is up above my head. I want to get good close-ups because I'm hoping we have some engineers out there who maybe can look at this and tell me what it is. Giving you guys. Yeah, Jimmy, you seem to know a lot about this. I would not mind any information you have. Do you mind if I quote you in the article, Jimmy, if I need to use any of your insights? This is very pretty here. Alright, I'm going to go around. I do need to get pictures too, but I'm trying to get plenty of footage to help out. I'm going to definitely show this to some of my historian friends and colleagues to see if they can look at it and tell me anything about it. There's a family over there with a dog enjoying the flat rock. I have heard many stories about people enjoying this in their childhood, climbing on it and sledding and everything. So I'm going to climb up on the mill real quick. Oh, hello. So over here you can see that this is where it would have been blown, and then that is the earthen dam over there. And then there's this nice pathway here. So I'm wondering if this might be kind of public, because there's a lot of people out here hiking around. But you know, we're right here in a yard. So this up here, so I don't know, the theory that some of the engineers have is that this was a dam and that it was blown up in the middle here and created an earthen dam. I guess that seems somewhat likely. I am interested though, I want to note that if you guys can see, looking at a page about mill construction, and you're not sure that was the dam. Major stone wall with a wheel on one end. So Jeff, are you saying this might actually just be the mill itself? Well, and that's something I've been wondering. Now this is interesting. I don't know if any of you can explain this. So if you see, the wall starts to go straight and then it crooks out at a weird angle, like maybe like a 30-degree angle down there at the end. I do wonder why. It's straight everywhere else, it's straight down, but then it goes over there and we get a little weird crook. Do note that all of these trees would not have been here when this was constructed. This would have pretty much been blank land. The owner did tell me that the oldest trees that used to stand here were blown down during a hurricane, and they were about 100 years old. She counted their rings. So that's important to know. The mill itself would have been built on the big rock. So I think that could be the case, Jeff, and that big rock would not have always been there. Now apparently it was there in the 30s, but what the owner has told me is that this used to just be dirt. All of this has been uncovered due to extreme erosion. This whole area is at major risk of erosion. They worry about the mill or the wall falling over. because of the erosion. People out there having fun. So this is, I'm up on top of the wall now. As you can see, it's probably about 4 feet thick, maybe 4.5. Here's one end. This is all built here from the city, trying to hold up the wall and direct the water. So that's not old. And see here, we have like a little nub, right? It's like flat and then it like goes up like a castle. It really does look like a castle. I think it's cool. This is also interesting. There is definitely like a thin, like a walkway up here, right? So I do wonder about that too. Why is there this indentation across the whole thing? I'm not sure. And then here is the edge. This is where the axle of the wheel would have been. Oh, Jeff, you are right. So maybe the reason there's this indentation here is that the wheel's axle would have gone right there. That is an interesting thought. I like that idea. Again, for some of you who are watching, I hope you don't mind if I quote you in my article. Please let me know if you have a problem with that. And so this is interesting too. What do you think about this weird angle here, right? It goes straight, and then we have like a turnoff right there. That tree wouldn't have been there, so it's not because of the tree. It would be a very weird space for a building. The other interesting thing is this is the pump station on the Eno. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Yeah, it would be more crude because this would have been built in the 1700s, early 1700s. You hid there for dirt clod fights. I feel like that's what I would have done too, Jimmy. If I were here as a kid, we would have been one team on one side and one team on the other, like throwing mud at each other. But yeah, so definitely, and look, you can actually see, it's nice here, you can actually see over there, that's where the wall continues. There is a dirt wall that goes up that way, and it still has rock on it. Tons more rocks could have fallen and extended the channel. Natural curve of the land. Maybe. So here's my question though. If this is a wall of the mill, why did this wall stay standing? And if we're thinking that the mill was on the rock, then this couldn't be it, right? Because the rock is beside this. Anybody who knows anything about engineering, I definitely would love your help. But anyway, this is it. I am going to hang up now so that I can get some photos while I'm up here, but just a quick look around. It's really interesting to talk about this with you guys watching so that I can hear your thoughts and your insights. But like I said, this is it. That's the edge of it there. Goes down into the water. On out. Very beautiful. Whatever this is, we do know that it's a piece of history. It's at least as old as the Civil War, but it's very likely older. This could be from the 1700s, and we are touching something that our ancestors would have touched, which I think is really cool. Things from the 1700s just really, they don't exist anymore. Most of them have been destroyed. So to have anything, even a wall, even if we don't know exactly what it is, to have anything that's that old is pretty marvelous. So I'm going to write this article. Guys, if you have any thoughts or insights, please feel free to share with me. And then I have a lot more information that I've heard from interviews. I'll be sharing it in the article. I couldn't talk about it all live streaming. But yeah, definitely keep an eye out for the article. It'll be coming out this week. I'd like to get it up before Friday, but I do want to talk to a couple of the churches. I really just want to make sure I get a full, as much history as I can before I write this. There's really not much history of Millbrook out there, which makes sense if you think about it, because it was just small family farms. So who would be sitting around writing the history about that? Probably not many people would. So, okay, the wheel. I will, Jeff, thank you. Had to take the force of the wheel. That is interesting. So yeah, you're right, it would need to be extra thick. But again, Jeff, where would the other walls have been? What are you picturing? Would they have gone, like if that's the end, would you say the wall would go that way? And then like this would have been, like would this have been the inside of the mill right here? Is that what you're saying? Like if down here would have actually been the mill? I would like to know, yeah, this wall here, it's just a lone wall, and there's just no other hints that I can see, and maybe a more trained eye. It's possible though, I mean, maybe the mill was huge. I mean, again, I don't know how big it was, but if it went... Okay, so you're saying, Jeff, the mill would have been here, and what I'm standing on right here would have been a wheel? I don't feel like that makes sense, right? Because then the wheel would be up against the mill wall. But again, I don't know architecture. Maybe I'm not seeing it right. But I just want to make sure, like if you're saying this would have been the mill, the axle of the wheel here, but if the mill was built right there, like if you're saying the mill was right there, and this was the wheel, then why would this wall extend all away from the mill? Because that seems strange. It seems like the mill would have been like a big structure right here, and then have this weird wall coming out from it. The wheel would have been outside the wall of the mill itself. It drives the belt that turns the stones. Retaining wall, there's earth behind it. I see. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. I definitely do want to get an architect out here and actually look at it. Like, actually look at the structure itself. But anyway, I've been up here a while. I want to go back, and I don't want to be rude to the people who are hosting me here. So, thank you guys so much for all your help and for watching. I will have an article going up soon. Please share any thoughts you have. Any history of Millbrook, any tidbits you have would be great. Looking for things to include in this article, which I think we do need an article about the history of Millbrook. It's something that hasn't really been explored too much, to my knowledge. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm just gonna say bye to you guys. Thank you, hanging out up here on the wall. It's a beautiful day for this, but anyway, thank you guys so much for your help, and I will talk to you soon, and keep a lookout for the article. Thank you. Bye, Jimmy. Bye, Jeff. Bye, Dad.